Spirit Switchboard, airing live on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3, New Orleans. Hi, thank you for joining me here on Spirit Switchboard. We are broadcasting live from the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Network, 105.3 and 107.7 in New Orleans. So I am your host, Kerrilynn Shellhorn, and joining me today is my dear friend, Lorraine Ross. And we are going to be talking about haunted theaters. I wanted, so thanks for joining me, Lorraine.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Right. I couldn't, when I was thinking about doing this show, what prompted it, I'll get to in a second. But when I was thinking about doing this show, I didn't have anybody else in mind that I wanted to ask. Like, you're the most theater person I know. The most theater person I know. When we were doing, like during COVID, my granddaughter was born during COVID. She is going to be a glorious 3 in June. And when she was 6 months, she started watching Hamilton, and she still loves it. Like, she'll be 3 and she loves Hamilton. And Lorraine did one whole scene. She got all dressed up and filmed herself and sent it to my granddaughter, just, because she knew that she loved it. So it was, and we still watch it. It cracks me up. I love it so much that you took the time to do that for us. It was brilliant.
Oh, thank you. It was fun. I mean, you know me, I love musical theater. It's kind of my jam. And I think by that point, I had probably watched Hamilton probably 10, 15, 20 times. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
I could probably do it.
Easily that many times for us too, because it just made the baby happy. And what makes the baby happy, we just keep doing, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
But the haunted theater came up because there was I had an interaction with a gentleman, and he was doing sound recently, and he was doing sound for a play, and he shared this story. He said, we had this experience happen backstage that was so not normal, and he asked me, he's like, does that happen at all theaters? And it just got, the wheel spinning. I've had my own experiences at the Princess Guild, the theater in St. Thomas. When I had did the Love Life Afterlife event there. I did it 2 years in a row. And when I was on stage and you've got the headset on and I'm sharing messages, and all of a sudden I could hear a gentleman cough and say hello standing right beside me on the stage, but there was like nobody there. So I had my own experience, and we were told that it was former church. And so, other people have recognized that this gentleman is there, and they save a seat in the front. So it just, it triggered that memory, because it was 2019, I think, the last time I was there, or 2018 even. So it triggered that memory in wanting to have this show about theaters. Are they all haunted? Do you think they all would be?
I don't know. Probably. I mean, some of them are. Well, why wouldn't they be? I mean, think about all the amazing old productions that have been. Like, when you stop to think about, back in the 1600s, like that's how people communicated, was through theater. People would go, and of course, and there are many stories about many strange things that have happened in theaters. Like some are good, some are bad.
Right.
Yeah.
So do you think? Well, it got my wheels spinning. Like, people who just enjoy the fame. So would they want to stay where they're,
yes,
accolades and clapping and, so all of that emotional support. So ego keeps them in one spot, tragedy. when I
Tragedy.
started
Yep.
doing some more research, the amount of theaters that burned to the ground and had to be rebuilt was incredible when I started doing that research.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
Like,
yeah. Tragedy for sure. I mean, that's that whole thing about theater is comedy and tragedy, right? It's not just what happens on the stage, but it's those other things that have happened afterwards, right? So
yeah.
there's a lot. Yeah.
What else? Oh, and then what about, so our thoughts, our energy, our thoughts can create an experience, right? So if our thoughts, words, and actions and enough energy build up, we can create this experience and we can create something to happen. So if you have that many people doing like Macbeth, with
You
the
can't
witches
say
doing the
that.
ritual.
Oh, and that's a thing you
So
cannot say in a theater. You can't say Macbeth.
tell me.
You like it's like no, no, because of that very scene where the witches are
Yep.
conjuring up a spell, it's bad luck. And that spell is to bring evil, and they don't want that in the theater. So like do not ever say that when you're in the theater. Oh my gosh. You're
So
just
what are you
bringing
supposed
that.
to say?
Well, you just can't talk about
That
Macbeth.
Scottish play?
Yeah, yeah, and that's funny enough, people do say, that Scottish play, but I mean, why would I can't think randomly why I would ever be at the theater myself in a rehearsal and just happen to say, "Oh, by the way, let's talk about Macbeth." Like, I would just
Oh,
never say that, right? Like,
this chickie probably would. I
yeah,
would be squirrel on
yes,
Red
you would,
Bull,
you would.
ADHD, all the
Oh,
way,
yeah,
and probably
yeah,
say
and
it.
then the show would be everything that went wrong would be blamed on you
Oh,
for saying Macbeth, right? Because
well, I've
that,
had that situation happen
you
for
know,
other things.
I mean, yeah.
I'd
Why
probably
stop
still
now?
sleep
Why
at
stop
night.
now, right? But you can't say it. I mean, it is literally a taboo, like, all across the sector, whether you do small community theater,
Really?
professional theater, Broadway, like, off Broadway, like, you just don't say anything. You
All
do
right,
not
but
say
then does
anything.
that not come back to feeding? If you have the belief system and that many people have the fear attached to it, is the fear creating the things to go sideways because you're putting so much thought
Yeah,
into it? Like it
yeah.
just like which comes first, chicken or the egg?
I
But
guess it yeah, I mean, I guess
it
so.
just makes
I
me
guess so.
question
But, I
it.
mean, it's like those are some other superstitions, like, we say, "Break a leg," instead of "good luck." Right? Because we want the opposite to happen. So, when you say, "Okay, have a great show, break a leg," you don't want anybody to break a leg. But I know there's just so many strange little superstitions in the theater, but that's another one as well, right? Like,
So is
don't
there one about not having mirrors on stage?
yes,
Tell
because
me
it
about that.
attracts negative energy. You're kind of telling the bad energy to come. So no
It
mirrors on
attracts
stage.
energy? Well, I mean,
Attract
there's a whole other world
oh
of mirrors being a portal
yes, so that's why they don't want
for things to come in and
yeah,
out.
they don't want that. They don't want mirrors on the stage. So we've never, yeah, you just don't because you don't want it to be a portal for the negative. Because can you just imagine on the other side, someone's going, oh, here's my opportunity. Going to come and raise some chaos. I'm going to move the props. I'm going to move a chair when someone's going to sit down. Could you imagine what would happen if somebody came through that portal?
Yes, I
Yeah.
can imagine.
You can, but if you're on stage, and speaking for myself, being on stage, you would not want that to happen because there is a flow that needs to happen to continue to be, have a successful scene and have a great show.
So what okay, do you have other tell me more. I'm so fascinated by these, like, superstitions
Okay, so I
because
did a little, I
I
mean, I know,
wondered I
go ahead.
wondered if the superstitions can create some of that, beyond like I get that the tragedies can, and
Yeah.
then I was thinking too, the land that they're built on as
Mhm,
well too. So even before they're built, what is the history attached to the land and
mhm,
ley lines?
yeah,
And there's all kinds of things that I was thinking that could contribute to it as well.
absolutely. And I think those are all contributing factors as well. I'll just tell you my little piece. So I belong to a small community theater here where I live, and I in the past several years I've not done so much on stage as I've done things like set decorating and props, right? So I really like having that other creative part of me. So I've been had to go in the theater by myself, and so I did that. And when I first started going in by myself, I didn't want to go there. because I had gone in a couple of times and I felt really like chilly is a good word. I felt chilly when I went in and I was like, what is going on here? And I feel like what you said, like my negative energy was bringing negative energy and I was afraid. Nothing
Right.
happened, but I could just feel that something was heavy and I didn't want to be there. So, okay, that was fine. And then things started happening when I was going in there. Like I'm going in there by myself, I'm painting. Like we're a small little village theater, we don't have a
Right.
lot of people painting the set. Then I could hear noises. I was like, okay, what am I going to be more afraid of? A ghost or a mouse? And guess what? The mouse is going to win that one because I'm more afraid of mice than anything else. So I'd be going backstage and going, hello, who's here? Hello. There was nobody. The parking lot was empty. It was only me.
Right.
And so then I started going, okay, this must be, and I said the person's name because we had a person who was lovely, well loved in our community, who directed me many times. And we feel like his energy is in the theater.
Right.
And his name is Jim. And funny
Comfort
enough,
zone.
comfort zone, yeah. And I would just always say, hi, Jim. Yep, I'm good. Please don't spill my paint on the stage or whatever it is I was doing. Don't knock my ladder. I'm here by myself. Like I would just have to talk out loud. But I would always hear noises off stage.
Right.
And there was just no explanation for it. There was nobody there. There was nothing. It was in a space. It wasn't in a wall. Like I could hear, I'd get down and I'd walk off stage and see where things are. So now I speak to Jim when I go into the theater by myself. And
And did it shift the
it's
energy too? Like,
absolutely,
did it
absolutely,
feel
because
lighter once it was recognized?
absolutely, it made a huge difference. I feel I can go in there by myself now and I'm not afraid, I guess if that's the right term, but I was
Mhm.
really afraid to go in by myself because I felt this really cold energy. And interestingly enough, that theater is an old church,
Right.
right? So it's very old. So, yeah, and we had it converted into a theater, an 80-seat theater. So it's a lovely little place and it's got great acoustics and all those great things. But yeah, I think that my own negative energy as I was coming into the space was bringing the negative energy. And then once I addressed it, I felt a shift for sure, 100%.
So that would extend to anybody that's working on set, actors, and then the people that come.
Yeah, I
The
guess. Yeah, I
emotions
hadn't
that
thought
they
about that.
bring
Yeah,
add another layer,
yeah, yeah.
another
True enough.
time.
Yeah, I agree. I think you're right. I mean, and I suppose when you think about that, could those theater energies be coming through if you're an actor on stage and depending what energy you're bringing to your character,
Mhm.
right? So if it's
Mhm.
a heavy, sad part, can you feel that heavy energy?
I find from my experience too, if there's spirits in a space and they have subtly been trying to get people's attention and people have not been paying attention, they ramp up like a little kid would, like a
Mhm.
little kid trying to get your attention.
Yeah, yeah,
How about now?
100%.
How about now? How about now? So those subtle little things are happening and maybe being missed until like the big things happen to get attention.
Right. And, I really believe like I've been on stage and I had one experience that was actually really funny, but I believe that it was on purpose. Like it wasn't me. I felt like it was an energy that did this to me.
Right.
So it was in the middle of a show. We had a full house. I was on stage by myself and I was this really flamboyant character being really over the top and blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, oh my gosh. And I was just like so exuberant. And we had done the show rehearsals. We had done many shows. Everything was fine. And we always check the set before you go on, right? Before the curtain opens, like you always
Right.
check the set. And so everything had been fine. So I get in and those old metal, from the 70s, old chaise lounges, the metal chaise lounges.
Yeah.
We were using that as a bed, right? So I get on it and I'm, getting all ready for my affair I'm having with the person. And I'm getting all, I'm fully clothed, but I'm just got all these blankets and the whole thing collapsed collapsed underneath me. Well, I mean, sometimes if you drop a line in theater, you can pick it up and throw something else in there until you find yourself back on. But I had no idea what I was doing. I was under this pile of blankets, Kerrilynn, and I was laughing so hard. The blankets were shaking. The audience was killing themselves laughing. So I just had to. I said, "Okay, here we are," and I picked myself up off the flattened chaise, fixed it, and carried on. But I mean, to me, there was somebody having fun with me on stage because there was just no reason for it to happen. It was completely sound, solid sound. I wasn't doing anything any differently. And that's the other thing about being superstitious on stage. Like, if you know something works, you don't change it. Like, you do the same thing all the time. So,
Right. The
yep,
repetition.
yeah.
And just to let our listeners know, Lorraine, you're like 5 feet tall.
I'm five. I'm
It's
five. I'm 5'2".
two. Okay,
Yeah.
we'll add the two. It's not like you're a really big person where that's, gonna fall underneath
No,
you. So
no,
there's a little
no.
more happening to it than
Yeah,
that.
there was something going on there. So, and I
Awesome.
acknowledged it. Like, I acknowledged it. I said, okay, thank you for that. Here we go. Because I didn't know what else to do in the moment. So it's live theater.
And so have other people that you've worked with had experiences as well too?
Well, you know what?
'Cause
Interestingly
has
enough,
Jim, your husband, so
no, my
Lorraine's
husband,
Lorraine's husband, Jim, though I mean, for the longest time, he was a bit resistant to
he,
anything a little woo.
he's not anymore.
Not anymore.
He's seen the
I've
world.
won him over.
You have won him over 100%. And he is very proud to say that to anybody who will listen. So he's been reformed. So yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, Jim has not. So the theater,
So
the other,
again, if you're open to it or not open to it, does that make a difference if you're having those
yes.
experiences?
Yeah, yeah. So here's the thing. So when I was doing some research for this today, I talked to many of my friends in theater. Okay, so I talked to many people, and one of my friends actually has done like a lot of Broadway, done things in Stratford.
That's what I want
So
to hear about. Yeah.
but you know what? I reached out to him. I said, what's going on? Like, I'm doing this. I want, just tell me, tell me, tell me. And he came back to me and goes, I got nothing. Absolutely nothing. I said,
Of
what?
course.
You know, I mean, he's done Broadway, off Broadway, like big, like in big old theaters, where there is people, there are things, there are spirits. He said, no, I got nothing. I was so disappointed. But again, I think you're right. It's because he's not open to that, right? And my other friends that I've reached out to, the same thing. I reached out to people in probably 4 theater companies that I know,
Really?
and nobody had anything except me. Nobody had anything. And funny enough, in Belleville, where the theater that's close to us here,
Yeah.
um, my husband Jim was telling me that that theater is built on apparently an old jail,
Interesting.
but nothing. Nobody said anything.
So again, is it subtle? Are there subtle things that are happening that goes missed until something big happens that's paid
Hmm.
attention to, right?
Yeah,
Like
probably.
I was waiting because it was my second visit to the theater in St. Thomas. It was my second visit, and that's when I had something happen. And they were so gracious because the second time we were able to take after my event was done, there was a handful of people that could stay later after the event, and then we did an investigation of the theater. So we were able to
Oh,
investigate
nice.
as well too, and we had all kinds of like hits happen, and it was a neat experience. So I don't did that the first time I was there, nothing happened, but the second time we had the intention of connecting. So did it happen because we had the intention of connecting?
And what do you think? I think yes.
Um, I think so too. I think that if they knew that they were going to be spoke to, and they wanted that audience back, right? And they
Hmm.
wanted the audience, so for sure, um,
But
it'll
it's
just
that acknowledgement, right? I think
yeah.
I think we know that. Like, if we want spirits to come and speak to us, or we want to speak with them, we know that we need to acknowledge them. They don't want to be ignored, right? So like you said, those subtle things that happen like on stage or off stage, that's, you know, they're going to keep making noise until you pay attention.
And I'm not one for provoking either. If
Mhm.
they want to communicate, that's great. But I mean, certainly wasn't setting the intention that I was going to poke the bear
No.
till there was a reaction happening, right?
No. No, because yeah, you don't want to have a nasty theater spirit come, because then you've got all that
But
negative
there's
energy.
definitely like older theaters because when I was researching too, it was Broadway, especially like the older ones,
Mhm.
and a lot of them that had the tragedy attached to them.
Yes. Yeah.
So if there was a theater that you would want to check out, did you do some?
I did. I did.
And where would you want to go? Where would Lorraine
Well,
want to
I
stand
I would like
in the spotlight?
okay. Oh my gosh. Oh, I wrote down the New Amsterdam Roof Theater in New York City. So there is a spirit there. Her name is Olive Thomas,
I know this story.
and I just think she's fun. I think
Did
she would
she
be amazing.
did she marry a Pickford?
She did. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it was John Pickford. So Mary Pickford, the famous actress. And
Yeah.
interestingly enough, if you've seen her picture, she looks a lot like Mary Pickford. When I
So
was doing research, I thought, is
yeah.
that Mary Pickford? But no, it was Olive Thomas. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
So please share with everyone that's listening.
well, why I wanted to go or about Olive Thomas, like the
Well,
only thing
share a bit about her story because she is quite known. Like people have
in
lots
the
of
theater,
interactions with her at
yeah,
that theater.
she was, she, she tragically committed suicide, right?
Was it?
Because her husband was not a faithful husband, let's put it
Hmm.
that way, right? So, and she was young. Like I don't remember exactly how old she was, but I don't think she was very young or very old. I
Yeah.
think she was in her 20s, like her late
Yeah.
20s. And she had aspirations. And she was supposedly an amazing actress and
Yeah.
had,
And
you know,
started off like vaudeville, right? Like
yeah, like yeah,
vaudeville follies.
follies, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
vaudeville follies. And I think too it was questionable about whether they were going to say it was suicide or accidental. It was like mercury tablets or it
Mhm.
was
It
some
was
kind of
mercury.
overdose like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
That
yeah.
wouldn't have been
I
a pleasant death.
could you imagine how painful that would have been?
Yeah.
But apparently her spirit is not malicious in the theater.
No,
Like she's
no.
just lovely. It sounds like she's lovely and just
But
happy and
it comes back to what I was mentioning earlier about having that she wanted to be famous and she
she
wanted
did.
that limelight and
She did want that very much so. And
staying
her
where she can get that.
exactly. And so because her life was ended so suddenly and tragically, even though it was at her own hand, um, she decided like I'm here. I'm not going anywhere and I'm going to make sure that people still know who I am, right? I mean, in the theater management, like they talk to her, like they acknowledge her, like it's
I
pretty
think I
awesome.
saw they have a picture of her up still in the theater as well too, don't
And
they?
everybody talks to it when they come into the theater. So all of the actors, like when they come in the
Right.
stage door, she's her portrait is there, and they acknowledge her. They say, "Oh, hi, Olive." Yep,
I just
I
it's
love that story.
cohabitating, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
We're all
yeah.
gonna cohabitate together and this is how it's gonna work.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm gonna stay here, and you're gonna like it or you're gonna like it because yeah,
And
that's
then
just
what
the way it is.
happens if they don't? Like, what happens if you don't save the first seat for George the Spirit and somebody sits there?
Yeah,
What kind of reactions would happen, right?
I don't know. Yeah, George sits on your knee. I guess you're gonna feel his spirit there, right? I just
Yeah.
think when I think about this, and I'm not unlike you, I don't like to be scared. So I don't want to go to a theater that I'm gonna be like scared, like somebody who's angry. Because if I'm sure you saw some of that when you were doing your research, like some angry spirits. I don't want to meet an angry spirit. I mean, I did a show at the Grand Theater in Kingston on the great big stage there, and we had a bat flying around on the stage when we were performing. That was scary enough. I don't want some scary, angry dude when I'm on stage, like I don't
But
want to
why
deal
is
with that.
he? But why? Like my head goes in 1,000 different directions. Why is dude angry? Why is he there? Does he need some help? Is he angry because he's been trying to get attention and support and nobody's been giving it to him?
I
Like,
suppose, but
what's the backstory to the anger? So I would want to know all of that other stuff that's
yeah, I mean,
attached.
I would go with you to see Angry Dude, but you'd have to hold my hand the whole time we were there. 'Cause and see, I wouldn't be a good person to take because then I would, bring the scary, negative, my fearfulness to the event. So that might not be a good thing. So
Well, sometimes that's energy that they would feed off of as well too, right?
that's what I mean. That would be, yeah, I'll be getting the reaction that I don't want. So
But it would help me.
it would. Okay, I would do
Me
it for
getting
you.
the
I
big
would do it for you,
reaction.
but you'd have to hold my hand. I swear to God.
Okay, I had to pull this out as well too because I didn't want to mess the dates up. Yeah, I just didn't want to mess the dates up. Okay, one of the other traditions or superstitions I heard too was about whistling. No whistling backstage.
No whistling backstage. Do you know why?
No,
Okay.
no. That's
So
why you're on today
okay. Oh well, this
to educate me.
I'm trying to be a good host or a good
A good guest.
a good guest. Yes,
You
thank
got
you.
all the information.
Okay,
Fill me
so
in.
no whistling backstage. So many, many years ago, when the rigging and the sets were moved by, you know, the ropes and stuff, nowadays it's
Police?
all mechanical. Yep, all the pulleys. Thank you. Um, the stagehands would whistle to each other to let each other know that
Oh.
it was time to change the set. But then there was an accident, and somebody on stage whistled, and the scene dropped, and it didn't end well for the actor that was underneath the scene that
Oh.
came down. So there's no more whistling on stage. So
So
they've
that would
stopped
be an
whistling.
angry spirit.
Yeah. So
He'd be
yes.
there,
So
frustrated.
yeah,
So it's their own communication language.
it was for the stagehands. It was their own language. And then once this tragedy happened, they stopped doing it because they didn't want that to happen again to somebody on the
Right.
stage, right? So that's why you don't whistle in the theater. I mean, obviously, it doesn't happen anymore because that's all electronic rigging and stuff now with all our high tech stuff. But back then, so again, these traditions, things have changed, but the traditions or the superstitions continue on still, right?
And it's just passed down. So
Yes.
it's
Yeah. We stopped whistling in theaters like 100 years ago, and we're going to continue, right? Actors are very superstitious, right? Like you put on things like you wear you wear the same socks. You put your sock on. It's like a sports, an athlete. You put the same sock on. If you start with your left foot on your first night, you're going to keep doing that until the show's done. You're going to put your sock on your left foot first, right? Like it's just, where you set up your table, like your makeup table, this is how I put my stuff. This is what I do. I start to warm up in the car. I sing a certain song. I can't change that. I'm not singing a different song. I'm singing the same song. Like actors are very superstitious. It's a big, big deal.
so that repetition and that energy that gets put in there can be the same as opening up a door and allowing for other energies that are like-minded to come in. And it's always to like like when we're talking about creative people or intuitive people. So anybody that's in theater is going to have that good gut intuition and I always call it like this little light of mine above my head, this little light of mine above my head. And that this little light of mine is going to attract spirits that are needing to be heard or needing to be seen or supported, helped, or whatever
Support.
it may be.
Yep.
So if you guys all have this little light of mine above your head, energetically and then figuratively. So Michelle Plummer is just saying, that she always recited Shakespeare. So I think that, like Shakespeare is a ritual to bring in other energies that are attached to it.
Yeah, yeah. And stop and think about all the different kinds of productions, like what are you bringing, right? So Michelle's doing Shakespeare every time she goes on stage. Like
Or
what
to practice to warm up or any of it.
Yeah. So what energy does that bring to her, right?
Mhm.
That's what I say. Like even if I'm not doing a musical, I always sing before I go to the theater. That's my
And
warm up.
there's energy that rises up. So your vibration gets really high energetically, and
Yeah.
that light gets even brighter above your head. So it's going to pull in, any spirit. So sometimes I have found in places, it's not just, that one building that spirits are attached to, but the surrounding area as well too. Um, and places like why do churches get turned into theaters? Why are there so many theaters that
It's
were
because
formerly churches?
it's because they
Is
have
the gathering
amazing
place?
acoustics. They have amazing acoustics.
Acoustics.
Acoustics. Yeah. Yeah. Amazing
Hi,
acoustics.
Adriana.
That's probably why. And again, they don't use them as places of worship, religious
Yeah,
worship anymore.
yeah.
And communities are attached to those places, so they're happy to see them being used for
Your
other
community
community
hub
things. Right. Yeah.
again just
Yeah.
pulls energy in. But
It
I
does.
just think if you're using it as so it already has a history of beginnings and endings, you're
Yes.
gonna add more to it depending on the plays that you're choosing, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Um, I'm gonna share with you the theater that I'm interested in.
Okay. Yes. Yes. Tell me.
No,
Tell
you
me.
have that one. This one was I thought I had two, but this is the one that really pulled me in. And I pronounce things. I mispronounce things all the time. So I am really sorry to anybody that, in theater if I am slaughtering how I say this. Nederlander, Nede
DER.
Lander.
Yep.
Yeah, Nederlander Theater. It's in Chicago. And so the original theater was built in 1903, and it was called the Iroquois Theater, which, shows time. There's a
Yeah.
little bit,
Yeah.
there's an issue
Yeah.
with that. But, and so in 1903, this theater is built. And they are trying to build this theater with the intention it will draw women in who are coming into Chicago to shop. So they want more, people coming to the theater, and they're not getting it built fast enough. So they bribe the officials. They cut corners. The officials and the city people are whooping it up like it's going to be the most beautiful theater. And they didn't have fire marshals the same as what we do now
Right.
back in the early 1900s. And yeah, so it just was all wrong from the start. So they opened it when they weren't ready. They opened it and had been cutting back. So with the balcony, like with the gallery seating, there's supposed to be two sets of staircases, and there was only one. So there's only one exit coming down from the gallery balconies. It was built so it could seat just over 1,600 people. And
Wow.
back then, they would do standing room tickets as well too. So it opened in November. And it was what was it called? Okay, so I wrote it down. I'm going to have to try to find it. Oh my gosh, just think like all this extra wood stuff, no fire alarms, no sprinklers,
Yeah.
no proper staircases, like all of that.
Oh, it's going bad already, right?
Are you feeling it?
Oh,
It's heading bad.
it
And
is.
they were advertising it as how did they it was like inflammable, like it was never going to catch on fire, like they were promoting it as being the safest,
Like the
most
Titanic.
beautiful. Exactly, that's exactly what I thought too, right? Oh, you can see that it's going
Oh,
to go wrong already,
yeah, I
right?
can tell. I can
Titanic
tell.
was unsinkable.
Yeah.
This theater is not going to burn.
Yeah.
I'm
Oh,
not feeling
dear.
it.
Yeah.
So this fellow named Eddie Voy was a vaudeville star at the time, and it was Mr. Bluebeard. So it was Mr. Bluebeard that they were
Okay.
doing, and somebody on stage hit the curtain, and the curtains were actually paper and asbestos. So
Yes.
yeah. All that is
Oh
wrong.
my God.
So it hit a lamp and then it caught on fire. And so they couldn't extinguish it with just the extinguishers. And so it was getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And then one of the stage crew, opened up the back door. So there's no fire exits. The exits at that point in time were locked so that people just didn't sneak in. So they were locked inside. Then we're moving on to like Game of Thrones. Like,
Oh, no.
where they're all locked inside. It all blows up. So
Oh
these
my
poor people
God.
are locked inside. One exit, like, it was just crazy. So the stagehand opens up the back door, and it created a backdraft. And so this ball of flames like shoots out from the stage, and it was pandemonium, like just pandemonium. And they were people throwing themselves off of the balconies, out windows, trying to put scaffolding to the next building. So over 600 people perished. Yeah, over 600 people perished. And they rebuilt on that same property. And so it was called the Oriental. Not that we improved with the names there at all.
No.
And being appropriate in any way. So it moved on to be the Oriental 1 year later. Like they rebuilt.
Wow.
I mean, just the energy there. So with the Oriental, okay, so no, sorry, not 1 year later. Okay, the Oriental opened in 1926. Yeah. Sorry, it was the Colonial. The Colonial is what they called it.
Who picked these names? They're all terrible.
I don't know, but it's all bad. It's just all wrong. So they built the Colonial, and the Colonial ended up getting tore down in 1925, and then in 1926 they built the Oriental, and then the Oriental was changed its name in 2019 to what it is now. Okay. But all of that, could you imagine the history to it? They have a special name, like they call it. The Alley of Death. They call it the Alley of Death. And so they see people. There was actually a couple that was at the theater, like in Pompeii. I think it was Pompeii, right? Where the volcano came in and there was a couple that was embracing each other. Mm-hmm. So that happened at that theater too, where they had to be carried out. So all of that tragedy in this theater, and they rebuilt the theaters, 2 of them, on top of this place, this location. So I know that they do haunted tours in that area, but all of the staff and workers and people that have been in there say that, they have sightings of people that perished in this fire. So it creates such a trauma imprint that
would take a lot as an actor today to go onto that stage. I mean, you're going to have to call in all of your positive spirits. Just for me, that's what I would be thinking. I would be calling everybody to come and stay with me and be positive, like, because it was so tragic.
But as a medium, and I tend to think left brain first, like, just because I can see them, right, and talk to them, I go left brain first. Are they stuck? Is it just an imprint? Is it just something that's being repeated, like a memory over and over again, or is there intelligence attached to it?
And do you think that because this is where I just went with that. Do you think that because the play or the show that they went to see was never complete, that when you're saying the moment was never complete for them, right?
This is true too. Who knows?
Right?
Like, there's so many questions, and I don't have the answers. And that'd be a good trip.
You
would think by the age that I'm at, I would know that we're not ever going to have all the answers to any of the questions. There's always going to be more questions. It's like a deep dive down the rabbit hole for a lot of it, right?
But isn't it great though? That's what makes it great. Like, it just keeps your brain going. That's
But having it, I just and greed, just like with the Titanic, it was about greed and getting the money flowing and getting this opening and the money coming in, and all of those people perished in this theater. And when I was doing the research, there was a lot. There were so many theaters that had fires during that time period, and that was why crowding people in,
Yeah.
closing the doors off, not proper exits, all of those things.
And then as well, they also used, that's what they use, like open flames,
Right.
like on stage, right? Which they do not do anymore, right? For that reason, right? I mean, not that they lock the doors these days, but
Yeah.
that's part of the reason why that definitely changed, right? I mean, I know myself when it comes to things like that. I was producing a play, and I had the worst director in the world. He was terrible, and he wanted to start a fire in a garbage can on our little stage, and we said no. And he was just like, he was so awful, and he finally quit. And I thought, good riddance, buddy. Like, I don't want to be in here when the place starts on fire. Like, there's a reason theaters don't do this. So,
Beyond superstition, it's
oh
just
God, it's
practicality
just,
and
yeah,
common sense.
absolutely, yeah, it's got to
And
do
you
with
would have a
safety.
fire marshal.
Oh yeah,
Watching over
we
you.
would not even had an opening night, so it wouldn't have happened.
Crazy.
I
But
know.
again, like about what's going to fill the seats and bring in money.
Exactly. And that's exactly, it had to be realistic. I said, well, we can create that. We don't have to put people at risk. And it is called theater. So, use your imagination.
So I just remembered, okay, peacock feathers.
Oh,
Somebody told me peacock feathers
mhm,
are another tradition
yeah.
or a
So,
superstition. Gotcha.
superstition. So, the thing with peacock feathers is that, so you never carry a peacock feather on stage, because the middle part of the peacock looks like an eye.
They think it
And
looks like the evil eye?
yes,
Okay, that's a
just
lot of
saying.
fear-based thinking
I
that
know.
I'm
So it's
just having
supposed to
trouble
bring
with.
misfortune or injury to anyone in the cast.
But so are there stories to back that up, or is it just we're all gonna put the fear into it and we're just all gonna?
Yeah. Yeah. We're just gonna
Okay.
be afraid because that's the way it is. I mean, I think with theater we
I
don't have
struggle
we
with that.
I know there's so many of these superstitions which are, as you said, just fear-based, right? But um because I think what happened, probably, like many of these superstitions come from such a long time ago. Um I mean, it's like talking about, witches, like all the witch burnings, right? People
Yeah.
weren't witches, they were healers, and they were misunderstood. So people took the theater superstitions that one bad thing happened. So it must be that darn peacock feather with the evil eye. And, Bob fell off the stage and broke his leg, or fell in the orchestra pit and died, or,
Yeah.
so, and that's, yourself, that's how superstitions and wives' tales start, right? They just grow from those things.
Yeah.
And so, because again, theater people are so superstitious that, logically we know that that's not true, but I don't want a chance. I don't want to be the one to put the peacock feather in my hat on stage. No, heck no. I'm going to not do that, right? I don't want to be the one.
So yet again, I'd probably be the one because the fascinator that I have has peacock feather in it, and the brooch that I put on has a peacock feather. I'll be
Of
the one
course
that
you
shows
would.
up. Not just
Well, listen,
unknowingly. This
if
was
we ever,
educational for me.
oh my God, if we ever go to the Netherlands Theater together, I don't know, and you wear your peacock feather
I won't.
fascinator, oh my gosh,
It's a
who
good thing I
knows where
didn't
that'll
wear
get
that
in.
when we went to watch Jim and his play.
I know, I'm surprised. Yeah, it's because we didn't know all this. That's all right. It's about intention. Yeah.
Yeah, Adriana is just saying it's about intentions, and I agree that it's about intention, um, and honoring. See, that's what I
Oh,
agree. Adriana is saying the
yeah.
hand of Fatima is a protection symbol, the evil eye.
Yep.
And again,
Yep.
misunderstanding what the history to something is can
Mhm.
contribute to more fear. And
Yes.
when you're
But
feeding
also,
into that fear,
as I said, remember, these superstitions are very old,
right?
right? So people didn't have the knowledge that that was a protection, that evil eye is the protection, right? They saw it as an evil eye because something happened, right?
Yeah, and I really shouldn't knock about traditions either because I know when I do seances, there's aspects to um, the Victorian seances that I still include, because I think that honoring where these seances started and how they started, and honoring those people that came before, even though a lot of them were charlatans, but the
Yeah.
routine of it and
Yeah.
how that was born, I still feel like I need to honor part of that and include it when I'm doing the seances.
Mhm.
So I
Yeah.
understand wanting to honor tradition, um, as well too. I just struggle if it's fear-based thinking.
Yeah. I don't, I mean, that's a valid question. I think it's a great question, but I bet you if you asked an actor, um, if they believe that because they're afraid, or if it's just, um, they're just carrying on that superstition tradition, right? Like it'd be interesting to hear what people, you know, traditions are important. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, Susan is just saying traditions are important. And
Yeah.
I agree traditions are important because it's honoring what happened before us, right? And
Mhm.
honoring that.
Mhm.
Right.
And so that's what I'm saying. Like, I think that where these superstitions are very old when it comes to theater, and I think that's we're keeping it moving forward, but we're honoring that tradition, you know. And again, as I've said all along, like actors are very superstitious. Like if it's been going since the beginning of time, I'm not going to be the one to break that tradition, you know. Like as I said, when I go on stage, I do certain things, or when I come
Yeah.
to the theater, I do certain things, and I don't do the same thing every time I do a show. It's not I don't do the same ritual every performance, or sorry, every show I do. But if I have a set of tradition or things that I do for
Right.
one production, then I continue through that whole production until I'm done.
So some of the theaters that I found when I was researching this too, it was hard to find facts to back up the stories that were attached to some of the theaters, like
Hmm.
so urban myth or a legend, or it's hard to tell where the story actually came from. And then again, it got my wheels spinning too. Like if you create a story attached to a theater, it's going to help you sell because you're drawing the people in too. So is
Yeah,
there that aspect to it? As well too. Did
I
you
know.
have another theater you wanted to share?
No, not another theater, but I have another kind of fun thing that I found, another fun fact about giving the director a graveyard bouquet.
A graveyard bouquet.
Yeah. At
That's
the
a
end of
thing.
the show. Yeah. I mean, I've never done it. We've always given our director lovely fresh flowers. But I guess
Okay.
traditionally, they used to give, when a production closed, it was considered good luck to give the director flowers that were stolen from a graveyard.
Okay, no, we are not encouraging that.
No, we're not.
We are
No,
not
we are not encouraging that.
encouraging.
But I said years ago. No, I mean, that's what I said. Now we give beautiful, fresh flowers. But I thought
That
it
is
was
the way to
weird.
go.
It was weird. But the thinking was, it was denoting the end of the production. So, quote unquote, air quotes, the death of the show.
Right.
And back then, actors didn't make a lot of money, so they weren't able to, give real
Oh,
flowers to say thank you. So that's where that tradition came from. But as I said, we're not encouraging that. I've never given a dead flower to anybody. So,
no,
but
that's not
it's just,
stealing.
isn't
Bad
that weird?
karma, bad juju.
I know. Why would you do that? Right. And then the other thing uh, was the ghost light.
Okay, that is fascinating to me. The ghost light.
The ghost light.
And I asked a few people about it, and they all kind of had the same excited reaction as I just did about the ghost light. Please share about the ghost light.
So the ghost light is wards off the ghosts, is what my little research, or it gives the spirits a light so that they can perform. So if we just go back and think about Olive Thomas, who really wanted to be on stage, so the ghost light is left on in the New Amsterdam theater, and she can go there and she has her spotlight,
So she's
right?
center stage
So
when
she's
the
center
house is
stage
closed.
when the house is closed, right? So she can go in there and sing and do whatever she wants. Now, in the little theater that I belong to, we have lights on that are left on all the time as well in our theater.
So, but not wanting to say that it's a haunted theater, like not wanting necessarily to promote it as a haunted theater,
No, I
but
wouldn't say that.
understanding that there's something.
There's something. Yeah. 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 I mean, yeah, I I think it's just for me, it's just respect. I don't know if that sounds weird or whatever, but I
Yeah,
mean, when I go into the
good.
theater and I'm by myself, I always acknowledge, right? I always say hello. And I know that um, the one spirit that I feel is there, I acknowledge him by name, but I can feel different energies in there. So I know he's not the only one, right?
Right,
Remember, it's an old church, right? It's an old church. So there will be others there,
right.
you know?
I'm doing an event. It's coming up in June, and the theater in Harrison that I'll be at has the original theater seats that
Oh,
are still in it
nice.
from like the 1940s.
Oh my gosh, that'll be amazing.
Right? There's um there's a lot of energy attached to those as well
I
too.
bet there would be. Yeah, yeah. I mean, the seats that we have in our theater came from another theater, which is pretty typical of, you know, old churches that have been refurbished for theater
Right.
use,
So
right?
then does that energy travel? So you're
Yeah, you're bringing along the other stuff, right?
like the glitter in a craft and you can't get rid of it. You're just going to keep spreading it around,
I know.
right?
Poof, here I am,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
All showy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. In our theater, we used to do all our lighting at the back of the theater, and you had to crawl literally, like climb up like a completely vertical ladder
Right.
at the back of the house to do the lighting and sound. And then we had some older folks who were doing our lighting for us because we're all volunteer, and it was too difficult to climb up there. But I have been up there many times as a director. I've been up there, watching the show. And one time I went up the stairs. Okay, nobody here, house is closed, getting ready to go on. I'm climbing up, and my foot, like I felt like something pulled my foot. This is when I was younger and I could climb up the stairs. And I thought, what in the heck? Like honestly, the great big rungs. I again gone up this many many times, and I climbed up, and my foot went. Did I?
And when an energy in spirit touches you, it feels physical. Like you can physically feel fingers around your wrist. You can
Yeah.
physically feel that
Oh,
pressure up
yeah,
against your leg when they're,
yeah. When I
leaning
climbing up
into you.
there, yeah, yeah. So again, of course, I didn't really think about who it was. I just thought, why did I miss that rung? Like, that's how it was.
Michelle's just saying feeling the support from other friends from your troupe that have passed is another part of the energy of the theater.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And as I was saying at the beginning, the one gentleman who I call by name now, I feel comfortable now when I'm going in the theater by myself because I always just speak to him and I know that he's there and I don't feel as anxious. Like I used to get a knot in my stomach because it just felt
Right.
so cold and I felt afraid, honestly. Like I would always call somebody, do you want to come to the theater with me today? Like,
Really?
oh my God,
Oh,
always. I was so afraid.
I always feel like you need to stand in your power and use your necromancer mom voice or something. Like, here's the
Yeah.
rules.
Yeah, well, I use it now, trust me. So,
But I guess if it's their space and their house, or if it was like a former past director or
yeah.
management
Mhm.
that was, not kind, that energy would be heavy and
Yeah.
attached to that space too. But
Mhm. Yeah.
it's layered, right? There's so many big emotions attached to a theater. All of the emotions are
Oh,
attached to a theater.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, I bet you, for your listeners, anybody who's been involved in theater, I'm sure many people have stories of the lights flickering unexplainably, like
Footsteps.
there's all footsteps, curtains closing, you know, when nobody's there to close them, those kinds of things. And it's interesting because we always find a reason, like we feel like we can justify what it was. Oh, it was a mechanical something, the light bulb was loose, or those kinds of things. Or when something falls off the prop table, like those kinds of things, like why? How did that happen? No one's near the prop table,
Yeah.
those kinds of things. So you're right. It's the energies. It's the energy that's there that's
But
making
I
them
think when you
volatile.
start to acknowledge them, just like a little kid who's like, "Hey, mom, 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 mom," Mom, like they build up to get your attention. So those spirits could be doing the same thing if they've been subtly in the background trying to be acknowledged, and they have to do the big thing to get acknowledged,
Mhm.
right?
And isn't it funny when I know myself when I was asking some friends in the theater about spirits that they've had experiences there. Some people look at you like, "Oh, I don't think I want to talk about that." It's like,
Right?
right? You're just kind of,
Yes.
or some people right out say, "Nope, never happened. I've never had a
Do
ghost
you think it
experience."
does, and they just don't want to share?
I don't know. I mean, why? I mean, I'm asking the question, so I'm not gonna,
Out
be
them?
laughing at you. Yeah, I'm not. I'm just. I want you to share your story with me. Like, tell me, you know.
Yeah.
But it's just like, oh no, nope, not me. No, no. But maybe they're embarrassed to say something because some people, as you know, don't want to acknowledge the spirit, right? So they don't want to, and they will find another reason that that incident happened
Until you can't.
until you can't, right?
Until
And
it's right in
yeah,
your face.
I know. I know. So I
I
think
kind of love watching that moment happen for people, though.
yeah, I'll have to get back to you when this show there's a show that's up right now. It's closing this weekend actually. And I'm gonna pull the cast just to see.
Yeah, I'd love a follow-up.
Yeah, just to see what they have to say, if they've had any experiences. And it's I'm just trying to think. Some of them are new to theater, some of them are very seasoned. So, it'll be interesting. I'll do a little poll and see what they have to say if then to share.
That's interesting.
I know.
So the other theater that I did find, and I can't remember the name because it's another name that I'm not able to pronounce, but it was in Paris, and it had the same storyline as Phantom of the Opera. And, where they had these accidents, and there was a fire in the theater as well too. There was all of that. But I'm so drawn to things texturally, like the rich velvets and colors, and I
Right.
I love being in theater spaces for the aesthetics of it too.
Oh, amazing. Yeah. Yeah. But you're right. There were so many in your research and what I did as well, like so
Yeah,
many older theaters caught on fire,
yeah.
and, so you can, logic can say, well, it's because they had open flames for lights and all of that kind of stuff. Right. So,
And if they were churches, so the history
hmm
attached to churches, and um, not if they moved, like if they moved headstones and didn't move
hmm
bodies as well too. That was just a thing here in Guelph, our Baker
yeah.
Street parking lot.
Oh, wow.
Headstones were moved, but the bodies weren't. So now that they're digging up, they found all kinds of
Oh my
further up there
gosh.
to dig. So again, if these older buildings, and then they were rebuilt over top, like what layers of energy are attached to it,
hmm
right?
hmm I know. And I mean, I found out, I mean, I haven't found out all the details, but as I said, like the theater in Belleville apparently was built on top of an old jail. So, Belleville's an old city too. So you know, what's going on there,
Yeah.
right? I mean, you
The
can't
other,
tell me that in that building that there's not things happening, right?
so there was one I found, I think it's called King George Playhouse on PEI.
Okay. I
And
don't
they're
know that one.
supposed to be, yeah, like I think it's captain. I'm really sorry if I'm messing this up. I should have researched it a wee bit better, but like a captain, or there's this fellow that's attached to the ocean, that's attached to the water, that sits in this place, and they leave a seat. So
Lord.
if you're listening and you know the full story and I'm flubbing it, you just let me know.
Oh my
Make
gosh.
a comment, fill me in. But it was on Prince Edward Island, so I think it's King George Playhouse in
Okay.
Georgetown. And they leave a seat. They don't let anybody sit in that seat near the front at all. But they say he's
Oh.
friendly and he just wants to engage. And sometimes people can feel this fellow holding their hand during performances.
Oh my gosh. I wonder if every theater holds a seat. I didn't see any of that when I was researching. Did you?
So some of them, yeah.
Okay.
Some of them I've seen where they specifically hold a seat, and that's no different than I do like at holidays for my family that's in spirit too, and setting a place setting for them, right?
Right, right.
I appreciate you coming on
Thank
and
you.
sharing this with me today, sharing this haunted theater episode. Next week, I have a special guest coming on, and she is an author, realtor, Canadian realtor. Her name, I'm going to mess it up, but she's going to be talking about stigmatized houses, haunted houses, and yeah, so I'm pretty excited about having her coming on to the show next week too. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you to all of our listeners. Thank you to the United Public Radio Network and to the UFO Paranormal Network 105.3 and 107.7. Thanks for being here today. You've been listening to Spirit Switchboard with host Kerrilynn Shellhorn on the United Public Radio Network 105.3 New Orleans.